We live.
Welcome to Wager Talks Last Call. Kelly Stewart here. You guys know me as Kelly in Vegas. VR is going to be up here first as soon as he gets logged in. Steve Merril for some college football and hopefully some college basketball insight for everybody. And then Kyle Anthony is going to be here talking all things UFC. First of all, shout out to our insiders in the chat. There's quite a few of you guys that have just joined wt.buzz/insiders. If you're looking to be a little extra special here with us at Wager Talk, getting some early access to things like Bet On It, Marco's Deli, of course, some premium access stuff like VR Steam Room and so forth. So no Art DiCesare. The joke in my friend's group chat is he's been on PTO for the last few weeks. I think these shows are catching up with him and he needs Saturdays off at least to just work behind the counter there at the Westgate Superbook. But he did send me a text message. So I'm going to pass some stuff along for you guys. Let me ask him, Art, we need your best bet. Because you guys are going to ask in the chat. We know that's exactly what you guys are going to do. I got some college basketball from him. Of course, I've got the rest of these conference championships. The first game up, we've got BYU Texas Tech for the Big 12 championship there in Arlington. That one starts in 59 minutes. Shocker, shocker. He says we're going to need BYU. I think I'm going to play BYU as well, guys. I got that 12-1 ticket on Texas Tech sitting in my pocket. But I think this is a lot of points for a team that should be able to keep it a lot closer. We'll ask VR when he gets in here about his thoughts. Miami of Ohio, Western Michigan, they have no decision on the MAC championship game. Ooh, the SEC championship game is going to be at 4 o'clock Eastern here. And UGA is not going to be a need. That is not good news for me. I like Georgia in this game. They said small, but they're going to need Alabama. As far as the ACC championship goes, if you guys watched Bet On It, I gave out Duke as my best bet. We saw the line go the other way, and now it's starting to come back. If you've got your odds logic screen open, you can absolutely see the movement there. And make sure you guys do have that open or the Wager Talk free live odds screen, because when we bring in VR here in a minute, he is going to be the guy that tells you to look at that screen and find the best of the number. So he said the Sharps took 2.5 with UVA, now 3.5. We even saw 4. But in terms of needing something specific for this game, they don't, but they're going to need Virginia big time for the futures book. So I'm guessing they're going to book to get some Duke money and then need Virginia to win the game. Last but not least, the Big Ten championship, Sharps took 6, 5, and now down to 4 with Indiana. They're going to need Ohio State. That one is going to be an interesting one because me and everybody else I know liked Indiana early. I missed the best of the number. I said, I'm going to stay away. But Kirk Cignetti as an underdog is rather enticing. And then I'm going to give you guys some of this sharp college basketball as well as Art's best bet here in a minute. But VR just popped on. So we're going to see what he's got for us here. VR, we're going to take you all the way until Steve Merril gets here, whatever time that is. Steve kind of marches to the beat of his own drum. So sometimes he logs in early, sometimes he logs in late. But I know we've got a ton of stuff because we've got college football today. We've got college basketball today. And of course, we have UFC.
Yeah, and the 4.5s are all going to be taken out in the next 10 minutes. Right now, as I was waiting, in 3 different bot accounts, Indiana plus 4.5. Indiana plus 4.5. They're taking out all the 4.5s. If you look at the odds logic screen right now, Ohio State should be lighting up, going to 4 even money. Yep.
Wow. Okay. See, so I feel like this is like everyone. And when I said everyone, I wasn't just meaning the squares and the rec bettors.
No.
Everyone.
And they're even taking the later number. You got to remember, the 6 was available, and you'll rarely see a betting syndicate do buy order like this a point and a half later on a Saturday morning, like unless there's injuries or something like that. It's very rare. I was worried that I was going to see Ohio State steam today once it got down to 4, but instead they came in with
Where
Indiana.
do you think the Ohio State steam is going to come from? Like at
now, forget it unless it gets to 3.5, 3-ish. Okay. That's it. Yeah, it's going to have to come off 4 for sure.
Okay. That makes sense. Again, I wish I had Indiana plus 6 in pocket early in the week, and maybe I would look at coming back on the other side. That one's going to be an interesting one late night here on the East Coast. I'm excited to watch that one.
I took the 4.5. I ended up taking the 4.5 in that one. I'm with you in Alabama and Georgia. I took the 3 with Alabama. Bought the hook up when it was 2.5 juiced. I just thought this was a coin flip game at the very worst. I saw the Georgia steam early, but as you can see, it's come back the other way now. Because I think most think it is a coin flip type of game between these two teams.
VR, question real quick. So the joke is Kirby Smart can't beat Alabama, right? Does that play into your handicap at all? Or is that just a narrative talking point on ESPN?
It's noise, but you have to consider it. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's hard to quantify it. What is it worth to the betting line? But we'd be foolish not to try to factor it a little bit, because there's just some teams, some coaches, some athletes that just have the other person's number for whatever reason. They just get the best of them. And you have to pay attention to it. Again, especially if you have a sample size that's repetitive and it's constantly happening. Like, you can't just ignore it. The difficulty becomes, like, am I now betting for it to continue or betting for it to stop? That's where the difficulty comes in, that you could argue both. That's where it's tough. And as handicappers, again, that's what makes the market. One's going to say it'll continue, and another one's going to say, no, he should progress towards his mean or what have you. But yeah, I factor it. But I try to eliminate as much noise as possible. And stick strictly to numbers, because they're the one thing that have no opinion. They don't care. They have no bias. They don't remember what happened last week. Like, they don't care at all. That's why I like to use power ratings, and data and stats, because it's not an opinion where, you know, everybody could form their own opinion and make it make sense to them. But with the data, like, it's hard to argue it. It's no longer an opinion. This is factual stuff.
All right, VR, let me know what you've got power ratings wise. There's a video that I want to start doing. I think maybe we might have to wait till next year. That way you guys have the entire season of it, where VR and I are going to go through power ratings every single week, because I do think it is really great information to help you guys learn how to handicap these games yourself. VR, kind of go through that top 10. Who do you think should make the college football playoff? Obviously, we've got to let the games play out today, but I'm genuinely curious, because there's all of this noise, right? I can sit here and I can argue that BYU should get in over a Notre Dame team and a Miami team, but I also know that Notre Dame would be favored over both of those teams, right? Understanding that, but then we look at it from an eye test perspective. Who's playing for a conference championship, who doesn't play in a conference championship at all, or who's not even invited to theirs. So there's a lot of different factors that is going into the college football playoff, but I want to know from a pure numbers perspective, who your top 12 teams are.
Yeah, with zero bias at all, strictly offensive efficiency, defensive efficiency, strength of schedule, past guess, future. They don't really have a future strength of schedule, but those are the data points that go into these power ratings. Point scored differential at home, point differential at road, like the things that actually matter. And here's my top 12. All right. Ohio State's number 1. Indiana's number 2. They have that right. Number 3 is Notre Dame, the third top power rated team. Number 4 is Oregon. Number 5 is Alabama. Number 6 is Georgia. Number 7 is Mississippi. Number 8 is Texas Tech. Number 9 is Penn State. Number 10 is Utah. 11, Miami, Florida. And 12, Texas. And right behind Texas is Michigan, which dropped a couple of my power ratings. Miami went up, Michigan went down in power ratings from last week. Notre Dame went up, Mississippi went down, Alabama went up a little. Those are the adjustments that he made. And the difference between Ohio State and Indiana is about 4.5 points is what he has, the power ratings. And the difference between Ohio State and, say, the number 12 team Texas is about 13 points. So Ohio State's 13 points better than almost 2 touchdowns better than the 10th, 12th team. Today, real quickly, BYU, I have in the top 20. I have them at 19, and I have Texas Tech at 16. Miami, I have at 88, and I have Western Michigan at 95. So Western Michigan's the lower power rated team.
Can you go back to that real quick? Did you mean Texas A&M was your 9th team, not Texas Tech? Sorry, because you just said Texas
No,
Tech.
Texas Tech.
Okay.
Texas A&M is my 17th.
17th. Sorry about that. Okay.
Texas A&M is 17th. Oklahoma's in front of Texas A&M.
Wow. Okay.
Just numbers wise. Michigan's in front of them. Miami's in front of them. Penn State would be a 1.5 point favorite over A&M. It's just it is what it is. Like, again, it's not my opinion. It's just what the numbers produce. And it's produced profit. Like, it's different if it wasn't producing profit, but obviously his math makes sense because it's produced profit. It's not going to be 100%. A lot of times the power ratings aren't going to play out. The lower power rated team wins plenty, but over the long term, over statistically significant sample size, the power ratings are going to play out more than they're not. That's exactly why, again, not the tout, number one in college football the entire season. Only 3 losing weeks out of 14, using nothing but the power ratings. I try to keep my opinion away. Anytime I did that and started really trying to handicap it, I made it harder than it needs to be. When I simply used power ratings and looked at injury reports, that was it. It made it so much easier. The line that his numbers show compared to what Vegas has, when there's a difference, we fire. And so far, it's been profitable in college football. And like I said, today, there's a couple of those games that are power rated different than what the point spread is. And you should expect that. It's that time of the year. We're getting into the playoffs, into the bowls, the narratives. We already have them. We've already drawn our conclusions on who's good, who's not. And the market's saturated by recreational bettors. So, yeah, that's going to be mostly the eye test based on the point spreads. So you get a lot of value times like this.
All right, perfect. Let's get into some of this other sharp stuff you've seen headed into this college football and college basketball Saturday. Everybody get your pen and paper ready because I'm just going to let them go.
Here we go. All right, some of the college football stuff that's still relevant. Nothing really on the Texas Tech BYU game. Western Michigan, Miami, Ohio. Miami, Ohio got steamed at the opener. That's why it went down from 3 down to 2. Since then, the public's driven it back up a little bit. That's public money on Western Michigan, not sharp money. Sharps are on Miami. Georgia, Alabama. You know what happened there? Early money on Georgia. When it got up to near 3, that's where other sharps liked Alabama. It's a coin flip game. There's no surprise you have a difference of opinion with that kind of tight line. Duke, Virginia, Wise Guys, Public, my cleaning lady, they're all on Virginia. They all love the Cavaliers today. She got down at 3.5. I told her she took a bad number, could have got -3 earlier. So she's hoping to be the product of good luck. Books are going to need Duke big time. That's the most one-sided, actually, that one. I know everybody's saying Indiana, Ohio State, but there's a lot of contrarians who heard that the whole world's on Indiana, that they're taking Ohio State. Rest assured, the Ohio State money is going to come in at 4 -05. You'll get Ohio State money. That'll be a little more balanced when we get the kickoff. Right now, you may be hearing it's all Indiana, like we hear the Super Bowl after the first week. It's all on Team A. Of course, because they see the line moving that way. Why would anyone take Ohio State when the line's going from 6 to 5.5 to 5 to 4.5 to 4? I'm going to wait till it hits bottom. Then I'm going to bet the favorite. You're going to get the favorite money today. Don't be surprised. Added games, I don't have anything except that Montana against South Dakota State. Every wise guy from east of the Mississippi, west of the Mississippi, north of the Mississippi, south of the Mississippi has a Montana ticket in their pocket. They got Montana -1, Montana -1.5, Montana -2, Montana on the money line, Montana -3 even money. Let's just say there's a lot of money on Montana today over South Dakota State. That's that one added game that really matters. That sticks out, that FCS playoffs. Because those, if you look, there's not much line movements off the opener. The limits just aren't really high. They'll bet them off screen probably today and mix it in with everything else. But that one got action immediately. Real quickly, some college basketball for you. I'll just read off a couple. 650 Lafayette +13.5. 719 Florida State +17. 733 Oklahoma -5. 618 Butler -4. 602 Michigan State +1.5. 702 Grand Canyon +3.5. 603 Iowa State +6, 673 Southeast Missouri State +6.5, and 718 North Dakota +6.5. So you got college basketball, you have college football. You're just ready to make money today.
We are ready to make money today. Let me give you guys some of that sharp college basketball from Art as well. He said the Sharps took Duke plus 1.5, FSU plus 17.5, Tulane plus 7.5, New Mexico plus 2.5, Michigan minus 23, that Iowa State game you just mentioned plus 6, and Wyoming minus 14. Art DiCesare says his best bet is Dayton plus 5.5 here on this beautiful college basketball Saturday. If you guys do have a college basketball question, Steve Merril is going to get it answered for you. But first, VR, anything you would like to leave our audience with?
Yeah, UFC. Don't overlook UFC 323 tonight. It's the last pay-per-view card of the year before switching over to Paramount for the new year. No more pay-per-views. They will be called numbered events moving forward. You will never have to pay pay-per-view again. Stack card from top to bottom. Give you a small favorite, and may save you some money because I know there's a lot of money on Brandon Moreno, a lot of sharp money on Brandon Moreno. Be careful with that. His best minutes, I love the guy. I made a lot of money with him, but his best minutes are behind him. At 32 years old, this is going to be his 19th UFC fight. And over his last 7 or 8, 5 of those went to bonuses, meaning they were wars. And every one of those wars went to a decision. And all 5 of those decisions, the results, he went 2-2-1, which tells me even in those fights he lost and won, wars. Whether he won, he got beat up. Whether he lost, he got beat up. That takes a toll on you. Tiara, 25 years old, coming into his prime on a nice hot streak, has a great grappling game. I think he's got enough to create enough problems for Moreno. This line should be at least minus 150, minus 160, because true odds, he wins this fight 2 out of 3 times. Should be closer to 200. So if you get minus 150, 160, it's a great bet. You're able to get 120, 130 because of the Moreno name. I think that's a good bet. And also, I think Macy Barber, too much negative about Macy Barber because of that, what happened to her in June. Was it a seizure? Was it a panic attack? Who gives a shit? Whatever happened, happened. And now we're getting her at minus 170, 180 instead of minus 250 because where's her mental state? Bro, as soon as she starts fighting, if she could make it to the octagon, she'll be fine. Can she get to the octagon? That's what takes the most balls. Walking there in your underwear with 20,000 people screaming, you're about to lock yourself in a cage with someone that wants to hurt you, not beat you on the scoreboard, actually hurt you, kill you, put you in a hospital, maim you. Fighting's very different. You don't play fighting. Like you play baseball, you play football, you don't play fighting. So it's a little bit different. Once she gets hit, she'll turn into Macy Barber. Just as soon as if she gets to the octagon, you bet Macy Barber. So there's 2 small favorites for you.
Awesome, VR. You are the best. Appreciate you hanging out with us here every single Saturday on Last Call. You guys can also catch VR on WagerTalk today. He'll be back tomorrow here on Last Call with Ariel Epstein doing all of the NFL stuff. His Steam Room will be going live right after for his premium subscribers. And of course, we'll be back with Bet on It here on Wednesday. Right now, guys, Flex Picks 25% off with code Flex25. You get to pick your experts your way over at wagertalk.com, wt.buzz/flex. Full daily all access. You can switch cappers at any time. You can skip days. And yes, of course, those coveted 5% best bets are included. VR is one of those handicappers you guys can flex picks with. So we appreciate him. You get him out of here. I know he's got a lot of work to do leading up until kickoff. Thank you to VR at Greek_gambler there on all your social channels. We're going to bring in Steve Merril. We're going to talk some college football. We're going to talk some college basketball. Steve Merril, it's been a little while. Welcome in.
Kelly. I got to sit down here. There we go. I'm sitting down now. There we are. All right. I was so excited. I was standing up for a second, apparently. Good to see you. I almost wore the gray hoodie, and I was like, I'm going to go formal because this is a special occasion. And you wore black. You had black on. I had black. So I should have crossed out and wore the away uniform instead of the home black here. But, yeah, big Saturday. Lots of sports going. We don't have NFL yet. And I look next week, we don't have Saturday NFL. We only have the Army-Navy game, which is interesting. And then the following week, we get a couple Saturday NFL games. We can't say we have 4 major sports going today, but we got 3 of them and then another one tomorrow, obviously.
Yeah, we'll take it. This is going to be a really great day of college basketball. And that's why I wrote you earlier and said, Steve, are you ready for college basketball? Because myself, I usually wait until around this time, starting next weekend, to really dive into college basketball. I know a lot of people are going to argue that you're late, but college football and NFL are my bread and butter. So college basketball is kind of that third. When did you start handicapping college basketball, and how are you doing in it so far?
Yeah, you're definitely not late. And I think if anything, you need to be cautious more than ever with this whole transfer portal. And anybody that tells you they're dialed into college basketball in November is lying. It's that straightforward. Now, maybe 20 years ago when you and I started, you could be dialed in November. But most of these head coaches don't even know what they have when the season begins in November because their entire roster, 70% of it is new. And they don't have preseason games. They don't have an NBA preseason. They play maybe a Division III or a travel team, and then they get into it. Everybody started November 3rd, that Monday. There were no trickle-in games. So you definitely want to tread lightly. But I do think now that we're in December, we have 6, 7, 8 games under our belt with teams. We can start to look at what teams are. We don't have to guess anymore. So, yes, I think this is a great time to start getting into college hoops. And then, of course, I love conference action in January and February. I will have my weekly top 25 video for Saturday games in January and February. And by the way, I've had some free play videos this week. Gave you the under in that Tennessee-Syracuse game on Tuesday. Also talked about a game on Monday's WagerTalk today. I usually talk about a game, including this upcoming Monday. Real quick, Kelly, I want to touch on a game that starts here at noon Eastern because you mentioned that Arthur DiCesare likes Dayton. And that caught my attention because we have a very unique situation in this Dayton, Virginia game at noon Eastern. It's being played on a neutral court in Charlotte, exactly where the UVA Cavaliers are playing the football game 8 hours later. So we'll see how neutral that court is. I think Virginia's going to have a semi-home game at the Spectrum Center. Not a game I'm using today, but I actually would maybe disagree with Art based on the matchup. UVA is an excellent three-point shooting team, and Dayton gives up a lot of threes. Out of 360-some teams, they give up 321st percentage-wise most threes per game. And UVA also the second best offensive rebounding team in the country. Dayton is only 279th. I think UVA has some edges in this game. And once again, it's going to be a semi-home game. How big is that going to be? You go to the UVA game at noon, and then you go watch UVA football at 8 o'clock Eastern in Charlotte, maybe win the ACC championship and make the football playoffs.
That will be an interesting one. I think the every sports book on the planet's going to be cheering for Duke. I got my buddies texting me right now. What are the needs? What are the needs? What are the needs? And I do have a disclaimer because John Murray had to remind somebody this morning that every single book is going to possibly need something different. It depends on what they're booking for. It depends on what the futures market looks like. Remember, a lot of those futures bets are going to be cashing this weekend as well. So kind of keep that with a little grain of salt. I am personally on Duke. You know what, Steve? I'll let you break down that game. You're local to UVA, close enough.
Yeah.
And I'm curious as to your thoughts. They kind of came out of nowhere, except you thought that they had a shot to win the ACC. I think you're the only one that I remember hearing on WagerTalk that was like, hey, you guys should be looking at this Cavaliers team.
Yeah, in my whole life, it's always been not my UVA Cavaliers, big rival of William and Mary. But I do kind of have a soft spot for them now. It'd be nice to see a state school get in. And by the way, let's remember, if Duke does pull the upset here, and it's possible. I mean, they got about a 45% chance of winning this game. They're only a 3.5-point dog, and it opened 2.5. So if the opening line was correct, the odds are almost pick 'em. If UVA is to fall in this game, the ACC is not going to get in that large. I think they've got Miami right now has about an 11% chance of still sneaking in because it's going to go to the top 5 conference champions, which means James Madison, the Dukes, not my James Madison Dukes, by the way. The other 2 schools I applied and got into were UVA and JMU. How ironic is that? I would love to see JMU get in, disrupt the system a little bit. And also North Texas about 50%, Tulane 40%. Obviously Tulane winning that game last night changes all the metrics there. This is before the games are played. So it's going to be either Tulane or James Madison when the final rankings come out if UVA falls. I'm not using this game, but I do like UVA. And the reason I'm not using the game is because I like UVA, if that makes any sense. Because as you said, Kelly, everybody is on the Cavaliers in this one. It's hard for me to disagree. You always hear that analogy. It's so hard to beat a team twice. Well, they just played less than a month ago. I get that. UVA was a 4.5-point road dog. They won outright, and there was nothing misleading about it. They had almost a 300-yard edge offensively. So we'll see if Duke can make the adjustments. The Cavaliers, I don't think, are any better offensively. In fact, I rate Duke as the better offensive team in this game. What the Cavaliers have is a huge defensive edge. Duke is not a good defensive team this season. And the fact that UVA still has a defensive edge and had a 300-yard offensive edge in the first meeting, it'd be Virginia or pass. But once again, wouldn't be surprised to maybe see this game land on 3. You and Gianni both talked about how it's crossed over that key number. Open 2.5, now 3.5, really 4. A lot of 4s out there now. I don't disagree. I'd be on Virginia, but I'm passing because I don't like being on a really public one-sided action, and that is definitely what the Cavaliers are tonight.
Yeah, we've got a few games like that. That's going to be really interesting. If you guys have a question for Steve, drop it in the chat. We're going to pivot to college basketball just for a little bit because the entire chat is going. Titan CT, one of our insiders, is kind of going back and forth with Rob, and they're talking about this Marquette game. What do you think about some of these teams that have started out the season really, I won't say red hot, but pretty on fire, right? Like you want to bet on teams and they stay hot, or are you kind of the buck the trend guy that's like, all right, we are now paying too much of a premium for some of these teams?
Yeah, you really have to look at who they've played, first of all. I talked about we don't know who they're playing as far as their own players until a few games in. But you also want to check out the schedule because keep in mind, last week, late November, we get all those neutral court tournaments over the Thanksgiving week in which teams play 3 games in 3 days. And you got to be really careful using those results as well. You also got to throw out when they've played these Division III teams. When they've played teams they've beaten by 50. You can't use those numbers either. So I always kind of look at the schedule of work, who they've played. And Marquette so far this year has started off just 5-4 straight up. And that 5th win last Tuesday was in overtime against a very below average Valparaiso team. They did have a 1-point loss to Oklahoma, also an overtime loss to the Dayton team we just talked about, lost to Indiana and Maryland. So they've played some tough opponents. And in this one, though, I've got Wisconsin winning by double digits. So not ready to jump on Marquette quite yet. I think Wisconsin is the better team. And also, as far as the matchup goes, the one thing that jumps out to me is Wisconsin does not play slow anymore. We've talked about the tempo change the last few years. And right now, I've got them in the top 3rd in the country in tempo. Marquette usually likes to play fast with Shaka. They always play tough half-court defense. They turn their opponents over. Shaka Smart's done that ever since he was at VCU with that havoc defense that got them from the play-in round to the Final Four over a decade ago. Wisconsin, one of the best ball handling teams in the country. They only have about a 14% turnover ratio. I don't think this is a good matchup for Marquette.
All right. A lot of people think taking the points there is the way to go. I kind of agree with Steve here. I'm not ready to fade Wisconsin just yet. I know 11.5 looks really heavy. Just kind of circling back for those tuning in late, Art's best bet was Dayton. Steve broke that one down. If you want to scroll back about 4 minutes, you can hear Steve's opinion on that one as well. A lot of people agreeing Marquette has been kind of a disappointment. I think Wisconsin is trending a little above where I believe they should be, Steve, to start the season, but I think this is a good spot for them here as well. So let's get into some more of this college football now. The questions are generating. They want to know, because it's kicking off here in 32 minutes. What are your feelings on BYU, Texas Tech? Steve, I've got a Texas Tech ticket 12-1 in my pocket. I gave it out during Bet on It when we did our college football previews. I said that this team has spent so much money on NIL. I like Joey McGuire. I like what we've seen from this team and where they're headed in the direction. So I feel really smart right now. But it is really tough to beat a team twice. And BYU could not have played that first game any worse.
Correct. And one thing that jumps out to you is the low score from the first game, 29-7. And yes, you did the math right. That was 5 field goals, 2 touchdowns for Texas Tech. In fact, it was a school record 5 field goals. Kicker had never had 5 field goals in a game in Red Raider history. So while they got to 29, I guess you can make the argument BYU's defense held up pretty good. And obviously Texas Tech's defense was extremely strong in that game, allowing just 7 points. So we do have a rematch. And by the way, Kelly, we have a rematch in 4 of the 5 games today, which I do love. And how do you use the rematch? We talk about it's tough to beat a team twice. Well, I'll use an example from last night, the Kennesaw-Jacksonville State game. And by the way, I've done free play videos. I did the math on this. I did free play videos for 20 of the 23 college and pro football games this week. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm giving too much away for free here on WagerTalk TV. But my point is I did all 9 of these games. I did a Friday video, and then I did all 5 Saturday games. So be sure to watch that after the show today for more deep dives into all of these games. And one thing I pointed out in the Friday video is I liked Kennesaw State as a small favorite because they had lost that earlier meeting, and it was misleading. They had a 32-19 first down edge. It was like 500 and some yards, but I think it was like a 3-0 turnover deficit. So you want to dig into the box scores, and it's not always, it's tough to beat a team twice. You want to see if there was a misleading box score. And here again, turnovers are the first thing I look for. BYU had a 3-0 turnover disadvantage last month on November 8th when they lost that game 29-7. So I do think maybe this is a spot where we sneak in, take the Cougars. I love Cougars, BYU Cougars. And this is also a spot where we're getting a little bit of line value at 13 or more because my power ratings, my projection, actually my simulation, 10,000 game simulation makes it 12.5 a fair line. So at 13 or more, I think there's value with BYU. But as I check the odds logic screen here, minutes before kickoff, 30 minutes before kickoff to be exact, it's dropping back down to 12.5. One of the sharp global books is now 11. Oh, that's a buyback. And then the over-under, which was 40, it was 50.5, 49.5 this week when I did the video, is now back up to 50.5. Circa in Vegas, 51. Very key number, about a 3 to 4% chance games land on 51. I mentioned in the video I lean BYU and I lean under 51 or more. I would definitely start leaning under in this rematch, as I don't think I don't think it was misleading that both defenses did well a few weeks ago.
Ooh, Steve, you're right. I'm looking right now.
Like a Christmas tree.
112.5 left over here for me. I took 13. I'm going to take some more 12.5. I like BYU in this spot. And again, I've been high on Texas Tech all season long, regardless of what Twitter thinks. I'm cheering for the Red Raiders to get into the college.
Kelly, real quick on that. I talk about my 10,000 game simulation. I also rank each offense and the defensive unit out of all 136 teams. We're going to get to the Indiana-Ohio State game. I've got them as my top 2 teams in the country, my top 2 defenses, by the way, in the country. But to put in perspective, it's weird to see Indiana that good. It is weird to see Texas Tech that good, but this is where they rank. I've got them as the number 2 offense, the number 4 defense, and the number 3 team overall. But I've actually got BYU as the 9th best team overall, top 20 in both offense and defense. So here again, I'm not looking to fade Texas Tech just like you're mentioning, but I think BYU might be a little underrated, and catching double digits is appealing.
Yeah, I'm going to be really upset when they lose this game and they don't get in the college football playoff. But that's kind of why I'm also cheering for Duke, because I'd love to see the ACC get 0 teams in.
Like I said, I'd like to see James Madison get in instead of UVA. Either way, a state team's getting in.
Yeah, I would agree. Listen, I know a lot of people like to argue about the game of 5 schools, but I do think it kind of gives you an idea, right? It's like, have you ever heard the adage of like during Olympics, it's like, oh, let's put a normal guy in there and see what a normal guy does. Like, let's put in a game of 5 school and let's see what they could do. You never know. It's a 1-game sample size. They could absolutely win a game in the college football.
Well, the better analogy is a thing called the NCAA basketball tournament. So that's
thank you. Yes.
Enough said right there, right? We know it works. And we also know they're getting away from it there. The SEC got 12 of their 14 teams in last year. And they've done this, by the way, for a decade. And you and I have talked about it on shows. I've made it very public. For the past decade, when St. Mary's of California and another mid-major gets in, they always play in the first round of the 7-10 game, or they get that 8-9 seed, so they have to play the 1 seed the next round. They do all they can for decades now to keep those teams from even making the round of 16. And now it's become even more blatant. So, yeah, I'm pulling for the little guy in both college basketball and college football whenever possible.
Yes, we do love the idea of a Cinderella story. All right, let's kind of get into some more of these really quick. Kyle Anthony's waiting in the wings to talk UFC. So if you guys do have a UFC question, go ahead and drop it in the chat and we will try to get to it. Rob Christensen wants to know, Steve, do you have an opinion on the total in the SEC game? I have a feeling that I have a feeling there's a correlation. If you like Alabama, it's because Alabama's offense is going to put up points and Georgia's defense isn't going to be able to stop them. And it's going to turn into a pseudo shootout. Or if you like Georgia, you're going to like Georgia's defense and they're going to keep it in a low scoring game. Thoughts, Steve?
Yes, as I mentioned, I did all 5 games of the standalone video, including this one. I talked about the total, but I even did a solo video for this game and the Indiana-Ohio State game. They're so big. And I talked about the total there too. So I've been pretty open this week that I like the over in this game. And it was around 47.5 when I was doing some of the videos a few days ago. And we have seen a little bit of money come in on the over. It's now up to 48. 48 is a semi-key number. I'd say 2 to 3% chance. So once you get to 48.5, you're probably starting to lose a little bit of value at that point. Would have liked 47.5, 48 better, but mostly 48's available. It's a little counterintuitive because here again, we have a rematch. This one much earlier in the season, back, of course, in September, and it landed 45. But last year, 51. Several meetings before that, 65, 65. These two teams have a high-scoring history. And if you look at how that game played out back in early September, yes, it landed only 45 points. Felt like Georgia's offense kind of struggled. I also feel like Georgia's offense has been better the past few months. And they are the better team right now in my rankings also. As far as the side in this game, though, I would lean towards Bama at 3 or more. When I did the video, it was 2.5. Those that followed me all season know this was in my college football top 25 video way back in September, of course. And I did call for the Bama upset win based on my projections. Here again, my 10,000 game simulation has this one a pick 'em. I think it's a dead even toss up. Really no opinion at 1.5, which is now the current line. When it was 2.5, I said, hey, if you can get a +3, Gianni mentioned this earlier. There were some threes floating around and the sharps grabbed it. Not a surprise. Now it's down to 1.5. I think it's pretty much where it should be. But yeah, over 48 would be my play on the total.
Yeah, Steve, I even have a book that has -1, -115 right now on the Georgia side of things. All right, let's kind of see what's going on over here in the comment section. We'll get into a couple more questions regarding either college football or NFL. Both Ohio State and Indiana go to the playoffs. So how do you handicap this game? That's really interesting, Steve. Yeah. I said in my breakdown on Bet On It, I said, here's the reality. Ohio State had to get that Michigan like stink off them, right? Like it wasn't a monkey on their back, but Ryan Day has really struggled with Michigan as of late. They go in to Ann Arbor, they get a nice win, they get the cover. Well, Indiana got to play Purdue. Let's be real. I think Kirk Cignetti's been preparing for this Big Ten championship game for a couple of weeks now. Do you think that has anything to play in on it? Or do you think, regardless, both of these teams are getting in, correct?
Oh, yes. Yeah. They're both 100% locked. So the only two undefeated teams left in the country, and they're 1-2. It's kind of a shame, in my opinion, they're playing right now. This would have been a fun national title game, perhaps, at undefeated. I'm not a big fan of these conference championships. I think they muddy things up, but I know that it's just like the college basketball conference tournaments. They won them. They're money makers. I would prefer to just see the regular season carry its own way, maybe even have an extra game or something. But yeah, I do think it's a legitimate concern if you're Ohio State. You always say, well, which team is more focused here? There's no question in my mind it's Indiana for some of the reasons you just mentioned. Plus, they're the underdog in this game. And while I think they're just as good, maybe better in a lot of metrics this year than Ohio State. And by the way, I've got the numbers to back that up. I gave those in deep detail in both standalone videos, the standalone video and the Saturday 5-pack that I gave you here. I'll quickly touch on some of that. If you just look at some raw numbers this season, I mentioned I've got Indiana, Ohio State, both top 5 offenses. Got them as the 2 best defenses in the country, the 2 best teams overall. Indiana has played a slightly tougher schedule. And by playing a slightly tougher schedule, they have still outscored their opponents by about 33.5 points. Ohio State's only outscored theirs by about 29. Indiana's outgained their opponents. Well, they've gained 7.2 yards per play on offense. Ohio State 6.9. And once again, that's against a slightly tougher schedule. So I actually think Indiana's the better offensive team. Where Ohio State does have the edge is I rank them as the better defensive team. They're giving up just 8 points a game, 3.8 yards per play. But as I said earlier, I've ranked Indiana as the second best defense, 11 points a game, 4.5 yards per play. So these are 2 really good teams. And I got to admit, it's hard for me to picture or imagine Indiana beating Ohio State in the Big Ten title game. But then you look at the fact Ohio State, as you said, is coming off the Ohio State the Michigan game. They're defending national champs. Seems like a bigger spot for Indiana here. My 10,000 game simulation does favor Ohio State. It's got that defensive edge making the difference, but by just 2.5 points is the simulated result. So at the current line of +4, 4.5, there is value with Indiana because we're getting those key numbers of 3 and 4 working in our favor. I'm looking forward to watching this game. I hope both teams bring their A game, but it is a little bit tricky. By the way, it's in Indianapolis, Indiana, Lucas Oil Stadium. Ohio State's going to travel well, but this is technically a semi-home game for Indiana as well. So there's a lot of reasons to like the Hoosiers, and I'll leave it with this. So glad Cignetti's going to be there for a while, and he didn't pull the Lane Kiffin. I think it's a brilliant life choice. He can do what he wants for the next decade. And keep in mind, he was the James Madison coach just 2 years ago when they got really good. And now James Madison is still really good. And obviously Indiana, his first season, makes the playoffs. And now they're perhaps the best team in the country. Remarkable job what he's done there in such a short time.
All right, Steve Merril, anything that you have to promote over on WagerTalk.com before we let you get out of here?
Yeah, it's a big day in basketball and football. 5 best bets in college and pro hoops and college football. 5 football and basketball best bets right now on my page at WagerTalk.com. And I talked about the videos. I gave you 20 of the 23 college and pro football games this week for free here. And you might be like, why go to WagerTalk then? Well, when I'm giving you 20 free football plays, most of those are light leans only. They're TV opinions. Hey, treat them as 1% of bankroll. I give you analysis for those of you doing your own handicapping. But if you want my official best bets, the 4% plays, the games I'm actually using, then go to my page, Steve Merril, WagerTalk.com. I've got 5 strong best bets, 2 in football, 3 in basketball, and then some big NFL best bets tomorrow on Sunday. And by the way, late last night, recorded the NFL Fade the Public video, which is 61.5% for free this season. I've got six of the 13 Sunday games in that video for you. That'll be up later this afternoon. So check out WagerTalk TV. And you don't have to wait. You don't have to keep checking in. Just click subscribe and click that bell for an instant alert when the Fade the Public video is posted. And also, don't forget about that free play every day on my page. Daily free play, Steve Merril, WagerTalk.com. And hey, get there quicker. Shortcut WT.buzz/SM.
That's why Steve is the best. I can't wait to go check out that Fade the Public video because I really don't like that much this week in the NFL. Thank you to Steve at Steve Merril there over on X. You can catch all of his stuff at WT.buzz/SM. Let's bring in Kyle Anthony. We have a big UFC card for today. Kyle, we've got like 15 minutes. A little bit longer than that before kickoff. So we're going to take all of your questions regarding Kyle's UFC picks. So Kyle, you've got two that you like for yourself while I let some of these questions populate. Davidashvili versus Jan is your first one. Go ahead and let me know why you like the big underdog here.
Yes. So in this fight here, we've got Merril Davidashvili. He's sitting at, minus 450 on the comeback here. We've got Peter Yan. He's plus 350. Now, this is a fight that we've seen. It was a rematch from the fight back in 2023, and it was all Merril. Merril went out there. He dominated. He was able to outland him. He was able to get the takedowns, do what Merril normally does do, and he outlanded him, doubling the significant strikes, 147 to 75, had 11 takedowns. It just pretty much dominated the fight from start to finish, won every single round in that 5-round contest. Now, Merril really is just a nightmare matchup for everybody. It's just kind of what it is at this particular point. And what he does is really weaponizing that cardio. He's able to push forward with the mix of the wrestling, and it's very tough for opponents to kind of get into any type of rhythm here. And he is able to really kind of just keep you working. And even against Peter Yan, the last time they fought, he shot 49 takedowns, which is the UFC record. No one's ever shot that many takedowns in a 5-round fight. And the point is, it's just he's not, even if he doesn't get the takedown, he keeps you working, keeps you draining your cardio, keeps you being on the defensive side of it, keep pushing that type of pace, and he grinds out round after round. And Jan is he's a strong, fighter overall. He's got great counter striking ability and all these great things that he can do on the feet. But when you look at this contest now, it's, what has changed? That's really the big part about this is really what has changed in this fight compared to the last time that they fought, because Jan got dominated. And if you're trying to look for value at plus 350, maybe there is that there, but Jan's going to be on the back foot this entire fight. He's going to be able to try to, get his offense going. He's going to try to do that, but Merril is just the guy that is going to come forward. He's going to crash the pocket. Jan is a slow starter consistently throughout his career, and that's really where Merril, I think, is going to pick up the pace early. He's going to be able to really get his offense going, and you're going to have Jan, who's going to really be kind of on the defensive, not being able to get his offense going. So this is a spot here where I think there's going to be multiple times throughout this 5-round fight that Merril can find a finish here. And you also look at it as that, yes, Merril is, he's definitely kind of played more towards the, winning by decision. You've got decision here sitting at like minus 230, minus 240 in some books there. And it's a high probability that's going to happen. He can just wet blanket him for 5 rounds. But there is going to be opportunities here for him. Sitting at plus 440 from Merril inside the distance, I think is absolutely worth a sprinkle here. I think there's value on that number. Again, he's probably going to wet blanket him for 5 rounds, but I think that Merril openly has said also in interviews, I want to get this finished. Not that we bet what interviews are being said, but I think the path is there. So give me Merril inside the distance at plus 440.
All right, Kyle, we're going to take a couple questions from the chat before we get into the second fight that you want to go over. Everybody has to remember, it's Saturday morning and my brain is still glued to football and college basketball for the show. Kyle, we have 2 questions we're going to get answered. But first, I want you to talk about your hero parlay. I just happened to catch that before the show over on Twitter.
Yes, so I do have it up right now. You got to check it out. I'm going to post it on my page. We've got it up at WagerTalk.com already here. One of them, real quickly, I do have is Peyton Talbot inside the distance over Henry Cejudo, and that's like plus 250. I like that here. You've got Henry coming in on his retirement fight. He's coming in on career worst shape. I think this is Peyton Talbot's time, so I do like that spot to hit. I think it's a smash spot for him. So I like that. That's one leg. Rest of them, check him out. WagerTalk.
Awesome. Let's answer a couple of these questions before we get into your second fight. The first one, Kyle, what do you think about Tiara and Moreno? I had VR kind of touch on this one as well, and his synopsis was interesting. I'm curious to see if you agree.
Yeah, Tyra is that next generation also. He's 25 years old. He is fantastic. We're talking about his grappling ability, his ability to kind of push that pace, stay in your face. And, the issue here for me on Moreno's side is that, yes, he's on a 2-fight win streak. Yes, he's a recognizable name. Yes, he's the former champion and all of those things. But it's wear and tear has really started to kind of appear for him here where, he has had, and I think even VR touched on a little bit where it's just, he's had just absolute wars and absolute battles. He's come out on the end of them and sometimes he hasn't, but I think that the MMA mileage is really high here. And this feels like one of those things where it's kind of like changing of the guard a little bit here, where you've got a guy that's kind of, heading towards the end. Again, Moreno's only like 34, 33, wherever he is, but it's just a lot to take in. Plus, if this was a 5-round fight, I would definitely lean more towards Moreno because Moreno builds in fights. As the fight's going on, he just is a dog out there. He's going to push forward. He's going to continue to push forward. And we've seen even in a recent fight where Tyra can slow down later in the 4th round, the 5th round, he can start to slow down. This is a 3-round fight. I think it really plays to the advantage for Tyra here. So, minus 120, minus 125, I think is a strong number. And I think he could well outperform that in this spot here.
All right, let's take another question before we get to your last fight. What do you think about the Duncan fight line move, Kyle? CLV Trophy of the Week goes to you. I'm guessing you bet this one a little bit earlier than the rest of the market.
Yeah, so I definitely had McKinney in this spot here. And, that you have, I think Duncan was like minus 180. Now he's down to like a pick 'em. And, I don't know if Duncan's coming in with one leg or something like that, but it's an interesting situation here because I thought this line was crazy to begin with, and I talked about it on my podcast that it would just seem nuts. It seemed like this is a car crash. Both these guys are going to come forward. Both these guys are going to throw. You got Duncan, who's kind of like a punching bag. He's willing to come forward. He blocks punches with his face. McKinney is a very, very hard hitter. And you look at it statistically, out of McKinney's 17 victories, all of them come inside the distance. And even with Duncan, 14 victories, 10 come inside the distance. So I actually do like McKinney here to get the job done. But to even get a little bit more on top of it here, which I think is a great spot, is McKinney by knockout inside the first 2 rounds. That's sitting around plus 310. And I like that spot here. Again, I think these guys are going to trade. I don't think that McKinney's going to look for any type of takedowns because we've seen Duncan. He's been able to, snatch up a neck, find a submission here. I think it's going to play out on the feet. I think it plays to the advantage of McKinney. And I think the knockout could come in that first round, which you could get even a little bit more here. But I'm willing to take the extra round there. And I think plus 310 is a strong, strong number here overall.
All right, we got about 12 minutes until kickoff. We're going to take you guys here up and to it. Really quickly, I got to tell you guys about what we've got going on over at WagerTalk.com. Of course, we've got those flex picks right now. You guys are going to get 25% off flex picks using coupon code FLEX25. And of course, you can add Kyle to your rotation of handicappers that you want. Say that you like Steve Merril on a Friday and you want Kyle's UFC card on a Saturday. Guess what, guys? That is how it works. Pick your handicapper, change it any time. Kyle, let's get into this second fight that you want to talk about here. Pantoja versus Van. I feel like you just always give me plus money on the show because you know that is what I'm always looking for. Another little plus money bet right here for our audience.
Yeah, so we've got Pantoja here. He's at minus 235 in the comeback here. We've got Joshua Van. He is plus 190. And you've got Pantoja here. He is one of the GOATs of the flyweight division. He's on an 8-fight win streak. 4 title fight defenses. This will be his 5th title fight defense. And at 35, normally at these weight classes, the shelf life is smaller. As you get into the larger weight classes, you definitely can last a little bit longer. But what Pantoja has done is he's looked better and better, which is pretty scary for the guys in the division at this point here, where he's getting, I think his skill set's getting better. I think physically he's looking better. And he just has a lot of advantages over opponents. And a lot of times that, we look at Pantoja, we say, hey, he's a grappler, he can submit you, and those are the things that he can do. But he is a very, very well-rounded fighter overall. He's got good striking, he's got power in his hands, he can move forward, and he's going to look to crash the pocket, throw big shots. And what he does really, really well is once you're comfortable on the feet, once you think you're starting to strike with him, he has very well-timed takedowns behind these combinations, and he's able to find, security with that, and then look for the submission, keep you on the ground, bank the round, however he does do that. And he just has a versatile attack. And, you've got Van. I am very high on Van. I think Van is an absolutely great fighter. He's 24 years old in this spot. And, he's got great boxing. He's got great, volume, good cardio, a lot of things you want to see. The issue for me here is the fact that, he's just young in the sport. And he has said openly, in multiple interviews in the past that he started doing, really training wrestling in 2023, and that's not many years that he's really been able to really focus on that. Now you're heading against one of the, all-time greats in the division in Alejandro Pantoja, where he's going to look for those takedowns. He's going to look to smother it. And I just think that, Van's just too raw. I think it's too much too soon for him. Win or lose tonight, I think he still will get back to a title shot at some point because very young, has the skill set. I just think he needs to build up a little bit more. But the issue for me here is the fact that, yes, Pantoja, has got the striking. I think Van definitely might have a little bit of an advantage there, but lesser fighters have taken down Joshua Van. And yes, Van has won some of those fights, but they've taken him down. And, Ray Saruya took him down 4 times, Cody Durden twice, Philip Bunez twice. I mean, if these guys are able to do it, I think Pantoja can do it at a much higher clip and be able to find that finish. And you kind of stick to what he's doing here. And, Pantoja out of his last 5 fights, 29 takedowns. So he's been able to find that path. And even his most recent fight against Kai Kara France, which is a fight that a lot of people kind of thought, hey, this is a great style to beat Pantoja, where you have Kai Kara France had an 83% takedown defense rate and also has got great boxing. That's kind of what we're talking about here against Joshua Van, where has great takedown defense and has good boxing. And in that spot against Kai Kara France, Pantoja had 3 takedowns, got a submission early, and that was that. So I kind of look at that as a very much similar situation here. I do like Pantoja to get the job done inside the distance here, getting off the minus 235 number. It's sitting around plus 120. I think that's a great spot for a 5-rounder. Pantoja goes for it. He moves forward. He is ultra aggressive, and he's not someone like, Merril. Obviously, it's a little more positional. Here, he's going to look for the finish. So I think Pantoja gets the job done, keeps the title, and plus 120, I think, is a solid number.
All right, we got 2 more questions in the chat before we get out of here. If you guys haven't yet, there's almost 4,000 of you watching live. Please hit that like button. If you guys are not already subscribed to the WagerTalk YouTube channel, please do so now. And of course, if you're interested in becoming an insider and getting early access to all things WagerTalk, wt.buzz/insiders. All right, another hard one. Baranowski.
Oh. Iwu versus Ibo, but I think Ibu here, which I do have him in something else, but I think he wins this fight here. This is another fight that's going to be an absolute car crash. Both guys coming forward. I think Iwu by knockout is a nice spot here. I think all of his finishes, I believe, have been in the first round. And now he's going to make a spot here against a guy who's willing to come forward and throw. I think Iwu knocks him out early. I like that first round knockout there.
All right, last question. Does Kyle like Faris Ziam tonight?
I actually do. I think that he gets a job done here. This is another one where the line movement moved. We bet him at about minus 130. He's sitting around minus 165, 170. And I think that this is a spot here where Nassim he's a good fighter. I think he's got ability, but every fight that he's basically won, he was losing outright and then came back and had some spectacular finish. And I think that Ziam is just very clean in the pocket, far more technical, far more cleaner. And I think he can kind of keep it at range or look for takedowns here. So I definitely think Ziam gets the job done.
All right, Kyle Anthony, WagerTalk.com, at Kyle Anthony, UFC, there on social media. Kyle, anything you would like to add before we get out of here?
No, last thing is check out my page at WagerTalk.com. I have 7 plays for this weekend. I normally do not. I normally have got about 4, maybe 5, 4, in that range. And this year I pretty much stuck to that. About 2 events ago, I had a ton of plays that I did love. We cashed 14 units for clients that night. I feel the same vibes here. I love a lot of spots here. Great from a entertainment perspective as well as a betting perspective. So check it out, WagerTalk.com, and let's get the job done on the last pay-per-view of 2025.
Love to see it. Kyle, thank you for hanging out with us here and answering all the audience's questions. Again, head over to Kyle's page, wt.buzz/KA. You guys can see his hero parlay over on X as well. All right, guys, we're going to get out of here. We got about 5 minutes until kickoff. Good luck on your wagers today. Errol Epstein will be back tomorrow with Gianni the Greek, Jesse Shule from WagerTalk.com, and John Murray from the Westgate Superbook.